Okay, we've got some breaking news. Not really used to covering the coronavirus anymore because they just get limited ads and you make like 10% of the revenue. It's pretty silly and there's a lot of coverage anyway. So I only sort of do things when I feel like I need to speak out. But breaking news, Prince Charles has got the coronavirus now, or how I like to call it, the Wuhan coronavirus, or the Chinese virus, as Trump likes to call it. And let's have a quick look here. And I'll explain to you why I still want to call it the Chinese virus as well. So here we go. Let's have a look. Where are we? Prince Charles. We'll start with Prince Charles. So he tested positive for coronavirus. This was 37 minutes ago on the ABC. They're not too sure where he got it from. They said he's displaying mild symptoms. Camilla hasn't got it. Camilla Parker Bowles, Duchess of Cornwall, was also tested and returned a negative result. He's self-isolating, obviously. Now, yeah, it's not too much on it. Not too much on it. They're just saying that he's self-isolating. They don't know where it came from. So why am I insisting on calling it the China virus? Well, that's a little bit like the reasons why Trump's doing it. It's because the Chinese are wrongly saying that the U.S. military introduced it into China. So, but the thing is, the Chinese government actually admitted it was the Wuhan virus anyway. Chinese officials called it that for a while. Then Time magazine, it's got here early news coverage, Time called it the Wuhan virus, so I checked that. And sure enough, it said China set. This was Time. Actually, I'll move the, you can actually see the little time symbol in the top right there. Time magazine is saying China set to end Wuhan coronavirus lockdown as reported cases subside. So they were calling it the Wuhan coronavirus. Wasn't any sort of issue there. But as soon as Trump called it the Chinese the Chinese virus, all hell broke loose, and I just take offence to that. You know, if you're gonna criticise people, criticise Time as well. And but why should we call it the Chinese virus anyway? And who started it? Apparently, the World Health Organization here started calling it COVID-19, and probably from a little bit of pressure from China as well happening in there, because they seem to rule everything nowadays. But I'm gonna still call it the China virus, and I'll tell you why. Because Ebola. Now you'll see here. I'll just move my window across here. I'll zoom in over here, and we can have a bit of a read. Now, the Ebola was, it says the virus had surfaced in a village called Yambuku. So it could have been named after the village, but apparently they named it Ebola because they didn't want the village to have a stigma. So they actually named it after a river that was close to this village, even though apparently the river that they named it after wasn't the closest river to the village. But anyway, that's another story. So there's a precedence here that, why didn't they just make up a name for Ebola? Well, why aren't the Africans all up in arms? And this is what really annoys me. As soon as China sort of jumps up and down, we all just sort of bow to them. It's like, oh yeah, we better change the name because China doesn't like it. Give me a break. We'll call it whatever we like. We can call it the official name. We can call it Wuhan virus. We can call it the China virus. Call it the Chinese virus. Maybe we'll get our act together and stop these stupid wet markets where this stuff happens. There's no pulling the wool over our eyes, China. We know how it happened. It's because of your disgusting practices of these wet markets, which has really pissed me off because they're cutting up endangered animals that they're eating because there's stupid Chinese traditional medicine that believes that they get some sort of strength from eating parts of animals. How stupid is this? And this is what's causing all this rubbish now, all this nonsense. And it really, really pisses me off. So let's look at the Spanish flu. If anyone wants to complain about a name, it should be the Spanish. Because we talk about the Spanish flu, it says by 11th of March 1918, the virus had reached Queens. This is talking about the Spanish flu, New York. The allies of World War I came to call it the Spanish flu, primarily because the pandemic received greater press attention after it moved from France to Spain. So, in fact, it should be called the French flu. You hear the Spanish complaining about it? Why don't we change it to the French flu? Because they're not Chinese, are they? They don't bloody have any influence in the world. So it just really annoys me how they're trying to cover it up, blame it on somebody else. Just own it, man. It's because you're disgusting wet markets is why we're in this shithole right now. Spain was not involved in the war and not impose wartime censorship. So there we go. And we all know Chinese censorship, don't we? So really, I'm just really annoyed about this whole development. And of course, Trump gets all the blame for this. It's always Trump's fault, of course. He's been a patriot defending the military from these slanderous accusations by China. We'll see how the trolls go on this one. I might end up disabling comments. We'll see, or I might just have a bit of a war of them in the comments section. So go for it, man. Give us a bit of shit. I'll give you some shit back. Personally, I've lost $20,000 from my super from this bullshit. So I'm not a happy chappy. Now, I had to go in and change my super myself because the clowns at my super fund weren't managing my funds well enough. I gave them 2 weeks and it dropped 20 grand. I said, that's it, man. I'm taking over. I'm not losing any more. Alright, so there we go, enough of my rant. So I'll be calling it the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus, I'll call it the wet market virus. That's what we should be calling it, the wet market virus. The disgusting Chinese wet market virus. Let's call it that. Let's call it what it really is. That's where it originated, because these stupid Chinese people have these stupid wet markets where they have different species stacked on each other. Let's go full screen here so you can see my anger. Have animal after animal, different species that aren't meant to even be living together. They've got them all stacked on each other, just excrement everywhere. And you think the viruses aren't going to breed in that sort of environment? Come on, guys. Seriously, man, you got to get your act together, China. And there's no twisting this thing into some sort of propaganda. This is the facts. You created this thing, right? And you got to sort it out because the world is not happy. And you've got to be very careful. We'll be turning against you very soon because I think the world's sick of the propaganda that you spit out and deflection. Apparently the latest thing is they're going to blame, if there's a new wave, they're going to blame it on foreigners coming in. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Alright, so there we go, enough rants. I'll see how long this video stays up for. I've had my say. Alright guys, stay safe. Cheers.